Welcome to season 4, episode 3 of the Georgian Surrogacy podcast. Welcome, I'm Liz Tripodi. Thanks for joining me for another episode. And today I am speaking with the lovely Caroline, who I am so happy is back home in Australia. Welcome, Caroline.
Hi, how's it going? Yeah,
I'm good.
glad to
How
be
are
back.
you?
Yeah, we're really glad to be back. Just to get the process complete more than anything. So, and especially with the recent travel restrictions around Europe and stuff, it just made it a little bit more harder. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so we're all happy that we're just kind of adjusting back to what is our new normal of life as four of us now. So
It's
yeah.
so exciting. So your journey now, I mean, I don't even know where to start because your journey has been so complex and so unusual. And I'll let the listeners know. So you and your husband are lucky enough to you were lucky enough to already have a son that was born via surrogacy
Yep, yep, in Australia.
in Australia. And I do want to mention as well, you are a medical professional.
Yes.
And there are so many medical professionals who actually embark on doing surrogacy around the world.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's actually, do you find, so let me ask you from a doctor's perspective, do you find that it's harder or it's easier to have to go through this knowing what you know as a professional?
I don't. I think it actually just comes as an advantage, to be honest, because you can kind of cut to the chase a little bit. Also, making the decision for some people to go to surrogacy, it might be a little bit easier because we're a little bit more scientific and know that often it's just an odds game. You know, the IVF in itself isn't, doesn't work for everybody, and we often see that in our everyday practice. So it's financially it's definitely easier because we are often self-employed and can save up for these things as well, so that was easier. My husband's not a medical doctor at all, so there'd be some things where he'd be like, what's that about, and ask me about it, and I'm like, well, we don't need to bother about that. Or yeah, so I don't know whether I can completely answer your question, but yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that there's quite a few doctors that do end up doing surrogacy, because I'm now in contact with quite a few doctors who've approached me about surrogacy as their next step as well, and making that decision for them. My decision was made for us, as I'd had to have a hysterectomy, but otherwise for other people, sometimes they need a bit of help with that decision.
Absolutely. So originally you're from the UK, and
Mhm.
how long have you been living in Australia for?
So we have been in Australia 11 years this year.
Wow, time flies.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
let's if it's all right, I want to skip over your first surrogacy journey because
Mhm.
otherwise we'll probably be talking for 3 hours.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but your first surrogacy journey was within Australia.
Yes.
Very fortunate to have a beautiful a little boy who's 3.
Yep.
He's nearly 4, isn't he?
He's
Oh,
he's just
I don't know who's
four.
freezing, if it's me or you now.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
All right, so let's talk about how how your second journey came about.
To be honest, my husband was a little bit uncertain as to whether or not we wanted to go for a sibling. I did have to twist his arm somewhat. We had embryos left over from our first surrogacy journey. I think we realised it would be difficult to find a second surrogate in Australia. We were very lucky finding the first one in the first place. And so we took those embryos to Argentina just before everything went a little bit belly up there. I had a miscarriage and a chemical pregnancy. And then we're back to square one. And time was ticking. My husband had put a little bit of a time limit on when to get pregnant by. So I said, well, Liz tells me that, it's doable in Georgia. She's done double donor before, because that's extra complication that we had. And she said, we'll be pregnant by then. He said, well, fine, if we're not pregnant by then, we'll have to kind of not do it. So yeah, it was a bit of an emotional time, that bit. But yeah, so we got signed up with Georgia.
Yeah. And so how did you find, so you'd already been in Argentina
Yeah.
and you were pretty burnt out by the Argentinian system by this point.
Yeah.
So how did you come across surrogacy in Georgia?
I have a friend who has done surrogacy in Georgia, and she was also looking at doing a sibling as well. And we were just talking, and she said, Caroline, Georgia will be super easy for you. This is my clinic. Why didn't you just contact them? And to be honest, I did hardly any research on the different clinics available, because by that point I'm like, well, the IVF is all pretty standard across the place. If I'm going to go with a personal recommendation, you can try and Google these things to the 10th degree, but you don't really, without kind of being on the ground, without kind of knowing people who've been through the process, then you don't really know 100% what you're getting into. So I just really went with her recommendation, partly because we were so burnt out that if this didn't work, well, that was it.
Yeah.
So I didn't do too much research at all on Georgia, I must admit. One of the reasons is because we were double donor, there was so few places that allow it, and it's getting harder and harder to do that. So, country-wise, even Mexico they were funny about it. And I said, it's completely legal in Mexico now. And they said, oh, no, it's not. And then 2 weeks later, they came back to me and said, oh, yes, you're right. We've looked into it. It is. And I'm like, oh, gosh, I don't want to be telling you that it is. So, yeah. So the fact that when I got in contact with you, Liz, and you've done that, you kind of were the first person. I think you were the first person to do double donor to Georgia. And I think the fact that was my big anxiety, that something would happen along the way. But the fact that you had done it, gave me so much more reassurance.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you guys decide on the donors? Because it's a
Again,
very unusual situation to be in. And as me and you both know, it's hard enough coming to terms with one half of you being a donor, let alone the second half of you being a donor.
I don't know, Liz. I don't know, Liz, because I think it maybe makes it easier, because in a weird kind of way.
I agree. I actually agree with you on that. I think I'm looking at it from a listener's point of view, that I know so many people struggle with the conversation as it is, having to move across to donor.
Yeah. But the fact it's both of us who are, I mean, we don't know. My eggs might have been damaged by the treatment I had, and also plus I'm 40 over 40 now, so I didn't really want to flog a dead horse for too long. So that actually, my husband had come to terms with the whole donor sperm thing about 20 years ago. So, and also because we already had a son, essentially double donor embryo, we realized that, genetics to us actually were not that important at all. So how did we choose a donor? Again, I was a bit like, well, we didn't overthink it, because if you overthink it, there's so much to think about in this process that you'll just get nowhere if you overthink it. To be honest, there wasn't a huge amount of sperm on the list in Georgia to choose from. That made things slightly easier. Yeah. Egg donor, I can't even remember. I think we were just looking for somebody who'd donated before, who'd had, I think, and somebody youngish, somebody obviously Caucasian, and European kind of appearance, and that really was about it.
Yeah. And so
that's all we really thought about.
So how many embryos did you end up getting?
I can't remember. I think I've blocked things out because just to kind of deal with things. I think it was 8 or 9.
Okay.
if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we come to first transfer, and did you transfer one or did you transfer two?
Yeah. We only ever did single transfers,
Yeah.
despite encouragement to do some double transfers.
Yeah. So first transfer was unsuccessful.
Yes.
Second transfer was
Was
a change. Was it a change of surrogate?
I can't remember.
I think it was a change of surrogate, I think.
Or yes.
Yeah. Then second transfer was also unsuccessful.
Yes.
And, this is actually highly unusual when you're using a guarantee program and you're using donor, but not only are you using normal donor, you're doing double donor. So this is
Yes.
more highly unusual.
Yeah.
Third transfer, what happened?
Was that the one? I can't remember. Was that the one we maybe had a bitrate CG of 20 or
I
something?
think
And then
so. Yeah.
you maybe know better than me.
I'd have to go back through my notes.
I've kind of and then it doubled and then it didn't.
Yep.
So essentially a chemical pregnancy.
Yep.
And then change of surrogate
Yep.
and a negative. Is that right?
No, I think the fourth one was successful.
Was I can't remember. It was just starting to add up.
It was four. It was the fourth, and there was three surrogates in four transfers.
Are you sure there wasn't more than that?
No, I'm positive. Do you want me to go back through my
You'll have
notes?
to go back. Yeah. One thing I would say is that Chachava were great in finding us a surrogate very quickly in between transfers, so at least we were not hanging
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah, absolutely.
Which
All right,
was
so
good.
that phone call when you got told that it was a big fat positive, tell me about the emotions that night.
Just unbelievable, just off the scale. Obviously guarded because I don't think the beta HCG was that great either. I think it was reasonably low from what I remember, and that's the
I
problem.
think it was low hundreds from me.
That's right. I think it was like 100 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which isn't that great because we had higher beta HCGs with miscarriage and stuff like that. So that's the problem with being a medical doctor. My husband's like, but we're pregnant, and I'm like, yes, but it's only 100. And then I go down the kind of Facebook pages, just kind of looking at doubling rates and stuff like that. So I think that's sometimes where a little bit of knowledge doesn't necessarily help.
No, because even though you are a doctor, you're still Googling the stuff like everybody else.
Yes, absolutely. I'm on like Reddit. I mean, I wouldn't tell my patients to trust Reddit, And then I've got doubling time calculators that you can look at as well, which are actually quite reliable. But
So
it was. I wasn't quite ready to believe it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do. I just remember you burst into tears. You couldn't stop crying. It was you just, and literally I remember every time then after I rang you, it literally was you just crying. You couldn't believe that you'd gotten to another week or another test or, the heartbeat,
Yeah.
So we got to 12 weeks, first trimester, and everything was very smooth.
Pregnancy was a dream pregnancy for me.
Tell me, any complications through the pregnancy?
None.
I know, it was pretty amazing, wasn't it?
None. I can't even think of anything.
I don't think there was one thing. Every test was like,
Nothing.
it was.
We didn't do. We made the decision not to do NIPT. And then I don't know whether we actually ended up having a full nuchal done, but the nuchal scan was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was absolutely no complications, and we got an update every kind of 2 to 3 weeks with videos and stuff like that, which was great.
And we
So
did a live scan via Fiji one day.
yes, and I think you actually met our surrogate whilst you were in
I did.
Tbilisi as well. So she was great. Having said that, we were non. I would point out to any listeners that we were non-contact with her, partly because she wouldn't have been able to understand us because she was from Turkmenistan, and I think she spoke a little bit of Russian, and that was about it. But also, I think that's the way that she wanted it as well. So she was quite a shy
Yeah.
lady. But yeah, we had absolutely, touch wood, we had zero complications at all. Yeah, and
How did
then
you feel being here or, being on the other side of the world, knowing that you were having a baby coming into the world? How did that feel for you?
I was actually quite comfortable with it, to be honest. Can I compare the Australian journey with it with Georgia? It was much easier actually emotionally to deal with. You didn't have to worry so much about what another person was worrying about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried for the safety of my unborn child at any point, if that makes sense as well. I felt that she was being looked after. There was no hints that she wasn't being looked after as the baby was growing each time appropriately and stuff like that. So I was actually quite relaxed about that, to be
Yeah.
honest. It is what, when you've been doing surrogacy for a few years, it is what you do. It's the kind of the price we have to pay a little bit for having a baby.
Yeah.
So no, I was happy that she appeared to be communicating with the clinic, and there was no breakdown in communication on that front. So you do what you've got to do.
Absolutely. And so coming up to Christmas, Christmas just gone, 2025, it was hard to believe that it was so close to you guys having to leave
Mm-hmm.
the country.
Yep, yep,
It was literally only, 3 weeks away from Christmas.
yep,
So you decided to get there. Well, as you said, it had been a very easy pregnancy. There was no hint of any early arrival. There had been no hospitalization throughout the pregnancy.
yep.
Everything had been, perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
you decided to get there at how many weeks?
36, I think.
Yeah.
Now, now that was primarily driven by what I had seen on several Facebook groups, which I probably, if I had my time again, I would have probably ignored a little bit. But there were so many stories of, and not necessarily with Chava, but any clinic, babies coming ordinarily at 34, 35 weeks with no notice and stuff like that. So I probably shouldn't have listened to those Facebook groups as much as I did. I think they were trying to scare people a little bit, because we did have a little bit of a wait, which was actually quite difficult. It was probably more difficult waiting in Tbilisi than it would have been actually waiting here in Australia.
Yeah. And it was absolutely freezing cold and snowing.
Yep, yep.
Tbilisi had not seen snow. Like, I couldn't believe the videos and the photos that you were sending me. No one had seen Tbilisi like that in years.
Yes, yes. And it was difficult with a nearly 4 year old as well.
Yeah.
Although the accommodation we were in was absolutely fine, no problems. But it was just, yeah, that was a kind of frustrating, kind of almost 2 weeks of baby, hurry up, you can come now.
Yeah.
And maybe, if I'd read the signals a little bit, I might have kind of waited a little bit more in Australia. But that's with hindsight, so that's easy to
Of
say.
course. So, uh, your little baby boy,
Mm-hmm.
he
Oh, not
made a
silly.
he made a very quick arrival into the world with pretty much no notice for any of us.
No. Yeah, I think even Gavanza missed that one. Yeah, so we went for a scan. I think the scan was on a Tuesday, if I remember right. And because he was big and she'd had a little bit of back pain and he was basically due, and there was maybe a little bit of extra fluid, they just decided to admit her for observation, really.
So this was at what, 38, 39? How many weeks was this then?
38 weeks, 38 plus two or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I got a message from Gavanza on the Wednesday afternoon saying, yep, they're just going to keep her in another night just for observation because they think that her cervix might be starting to change, although
Yeah.
it hasn't yet. And then the next thing I knew is in the morning we had a message to say that he'd been born very quickly about an hour ago.
I know. It was like 5:40 in the morning or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we none of us could believe how quickly it had happened. But
Yes.
he
Yeah.
came out, he entered the world weighing
4.27 kilos.
and he is the most beautiful
Oh
little
my.
boy. Oh my goodness. And all the clothes that you brought, they were all too small.
Yep. Because everybody told me to bring small stuff. You won't get anything to fit them because they'll all come out small.
Yeah. And so obviously, I mean, you were crying, you couldn't believe it. So you had a shower and you got ready and you went down to the hospital and tell me, how did you feel seeing your son for the first time?
Just just such relief and just
So
there's so many emotions that go through you at that time that perhaps some people don't have in a normal pregnancy.
yeah,
Some weirdly, some anger to people who told you that you were never going to be a mum.
yeah,
That goes through your mind, and kind of like proverbially putting two fingers up to them in your mind and going, I've proven you that, you were wrong.
yeah.
Relief, real hope, just a sense of achievement. I know that sounds really odd. Your children are not your
No, it
achievements, but
doesn't. It is an achievement. You know why? Because as women, especially women who we get to the end of the line and surrogacy is our only hope to become parents or to grow our family, absolutely it is an achievement and never feel ashamed to say that.
mm, just just real kind of raw emotion that me and my husband together managed to grow our family, and you know and a little bit of I don't know, it kind of does stir up some emotions in the past, a little bit of aggrievement from not being able to do it the normal way.
I think grief is very, it's very common in this journey, and it's very
Hmm.
common. And I truly believe that grief, when you become a parent through surrogacy, grief comes and goes in waves.
Hmm.
And it feels like that at some point in your lives, you always have to keep explaining yourself. Like,
Hmm.
just last week I had to explain to my the girls' prep teacher, I didn't tell you, but the girls' prep teacher and the head of learning, the girls were actually born, through surrogacy because they were talking about, Catholic school, how families are made. And I said, well, not very Catholic of me, but I just want you to know that we've gone through surrogacy
Hmm.
because the girls know that they were born in someone else's tummy because mummy's tummy is broken. And, I mean, me and you both know the what we had to do to get there, which is actually double the odds, double it's double the, I won't say double the heartache, but it's a different sort of trauma.
It's an increased complexity, because even when I was speaking with IPs in Georgia who'd had their complete biological baby via surrogacy, they had no concept of double donor either.
Mm.
Why should they? They shouldn't have to. But, they did make jokes like, oh, well, at least we have to, to go back to the UK, we have to do the DNA test. At least our baby will know that they're not being bought. And I'm like, because they have no
Ooh.
concept.
Yeah, well, unless you're put in that position, unfortunately, you're not one to judge, and I'd tell everyone to shut their mouths because
Mm-hmm.
you do not understand until you are in our position.
But they said it. They didn't say it. They didn't. That was before they knew we were double donors, so they didn't say it viciously. But
Right.
that was just the kind of.
It's just the unknown. People don't understand what they don't understand. Yeah. So let's talk about the days after getting him home, or when I say getting him home, getting him back to the apartment. Birth certificate took a while.
Yeah.
In your case, and every case is different, but I had always said to you that got to be patient, got to be patient. Your case is a little bit different, and I expected no problems, and there weren't. But you actually still made it home within that 6 week.
Yep. Yep.
Right on 6 weeks.
Yep.
Your hubby
Yep.
and your little baby boy was still home at that 6 week mark, in spite of the fact that you have to supply a little bit of additional paperwork to everybody else that has to go through this journey. So how did you find the paperwork process? Did you find it confusing? Did you find it okay? What did you think?
Oh, look, Mark's really good with paperwork, so he did most of it, and he had all of it kind of ready to go.
Yeah, we had talked about it
beforehand, and he's used to dealing with immigration a little bit anyway. I suppose with what was frustrating, the birth certificate did take a time. I think it was just purely the time of year, because we were actually on par with other people, really. But it did make me panicked about the whole double donor thing. I'm like, Lizzie, you sure this is legal? I've got a baby now. The citizenship itself was actually the simplest bit of the whole lot. Weirdly, because you can track it online, and so exactly, as long as you know that there's something happening and it's not being stuffed in a pigeonhole somewhere.
Yeah.
That's when it's easier to deal with.
I think that the actual, what I'm seeing at the moment, and another patient of mine at the moment, birth certificate was only 5 business days.
Yeah, they've sped up a bit, I think.
Yeah, and I'm expecting citizenship to come back today or tomorrow.
Yeah,
which will only be maybe 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think your citizenship was 6, wasn't it? 6 or 7?
Yeah, look, they came back twice, which I was a little bit annoyed about, because they asked for some extra documents, which was fine, Chichava, and we had them, and then we had to get them translated, which always takes another 24 to 48 hours, especially if it's over a weekend.
And and I must say, they were documents that hadn't been asked for before. And so I do want to tell all the listeners out there, and it doesn't matter which country you are from, please don't go buying any online guides or believing anyone trying to sell you a service to charge you to do the exit process, if they are not experts in the exit process, number one, and because things change for every single case.
Yep. So what did they want extra? They wanted
both donors POAs.
Yes.
They also
all translated.
They also wanted there was something else they wanted.
The lawyers' ID notarized or something. Yeah, there was a few, and then that we supplied that, and they said, "Yep, that's great, but we want something else now." So there was a couple of those, but they were easy things to come up with. Chichava had them all, and it was just frustrating that to get them translated, it's another 24, 48 hours, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and I suppose I think it was just, Tbilisi is a lovely place. It's a bit of a strange place, but it's a lovely place. But it's just especially if you're traveling with a 4-year-old and it's not home, and there was a bit of push for me to get back to work financially as well, in some capacity at least, with owning my own business and all that type of thing. So, that's the frustrating thing. But actually, the citizenship, although they asked for stuff, it was quite clear, and you could see that then when they had picked it up and seen it and
I've got to
seen it,
say, yeah, I think the citizenship department do an amazing job.
that yeah, so
They are so concise in what they ask for, in step by step, and they're so friendly via email as well.
yeah, so that, I mean, even though they asked for extra, you could see that they'd seen it, they were processing it. And then, yeah, there was this one sleepless night where it was a Thursday, and I went, if you don't get it on a Thursday, then you have to wait Friday. And then if you don't get it Friday, it's a whole weekend. And I just knew something was coming, and we couldn't sleep. The baby was awake. We were probably awake, but the baby was awake. And Matt his phone kept pinging with just general emails. And I'm like, can you just turn that off? Because it's overnight in Australia. And then all of a sudden he's like, Caroline, he's got citizenship.
Woo!
Which I must admit was huge relief, really,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
It is the
that,
best feeling.
yeah, it is, and also it's really nice, not nice, but you know he was stateless essentially.
Yeah.
If you actually think about it, he had no right to Georgian passport as far as I know.
No, he had no country.
He had no country.
And
And
every child born in Georgia has no country. Every child born via surrogacy until they get citizenship from the country of which, the parents need to apply for. That's the law.
yeah, so that is a bit, that does get a bit disconcerting when you're waiting for it, because you do start to hear about other people in other countries who maybe shouldn't have gone there and things like that. So, you know, so that's huge relief, because you can't do anything without, for Australia to recognise him as a citizen, where I come from in the UK wouldn't have
Yeah.
recognised him well, they wouldn't give him a passport at the moment, because we're double donor, and that's even more complicated in the UK as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that
yeah. With us in Australia, we are very fortunate to have
yep,
the options that we do,
yep,
and I think the Australian government, the Home Affairs Department, and I think that they've actually been so wonderful with surrogacy cases in Georgia. They're so experienced with it now. And also, kudos to other countries like, Canada and the US. And there are some other really good countries out there that are actually doing it so easy as well for their citizens too, which I think is fantastic.
hmm.
So let's get on to the sore point.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing at the end.
Yeah. So, look, I want to be careful, really careful with what I say here, which is pretty unlike me, but you'll understand. But I will just say that, you know, consulate staff in countries that are supposed to be looking after their citizens, they really need to be friendly, helpful, non-judgmental, understand that, you know, consular support is there to help citizens. You're not supposed to be a burden. You think I'm sort of wrapping this?
Yeah, well, I suppose what happened is that we applied for I can't even remember. I've blocked out. I think that's half the way I deal with things. We applied for the passport, did all the bits that you need to do for that, photos, which it's just normal admin. That's fine, and it just seemed to be taking a bit of time, and gets blessed essentially in South Australia or something, and then gets sent to Turkey for them to invite you. And South Australia were like, yeah, this is great. We do acknowledge that we want to get you home. I know you've got flights booked, because you can only enter the country if you have return flights booked. You have to have something booked. You're not allowed to, as far as I know. So, you do have, because they do say in their blurb, don't have return flights booked. Well, but you do to enter the country. So
Yeah.
that's a bit irrelevant. And yeah, there was just a bit of obstruction there, shall we say, from Ankara, and especially they just didn't seem to have any urgency to it. Shall we just put it that way? You're applying for an emergency passport,
Yeah.
but they could take their merry time to look at it. And we emailed saying, is there anything wrong? Oh, no, 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 it's all fine. And then email 48 hours later from Australia saying, oh, we can't find your surrogate. And I'm like, well, they told us 48 hours ago that everything was fine. Chichava were great. They located our surrogate, got her on the
And
phone,
let's
but
just clarify when we mean by can't find her surrogate. So basically, she just wasn't contactable via phone because when she departed Georgia, her Georgian number no longer worked in Turkmenistan.
yep.
But of course, Tchava had all records, had her local number, had her address, had all forms of communication, and within 2 hours.
Yeah, and Chichava hadn't been contacted by Turkey to say, have you got a phone number for her,
No,
which was
that's
really
right.
disappointing. So it was just that they weren't busting a gut to do this. And even when we located her and she was ready to speak onto the phone, they said they would get round to it, basically.
Right. And which was just, yeah, which was very, very disappointing.
Yeah,
So you made the decision to go home
I did, yes.
or with your eldest son
Yeah.
because he was just really, really needed to get home.
He just needed home. He'd had his fill of it. He was great, but he was starting kindy, and yeah, and we Airbnb had come to an end, and all the rest of it. So, and we had flights booked, and they were good flights. So yeah, we made the decision for me to come home with
And
him.
thank God you went home when you
Uh-huh.
did.
Yep.
Because
About
you were the last flight to land in Brisbane, is that what it was?
we reckon we were like almost the last to leave Doha before the airspace was closed.
Yeah.
I think airspace closed about 10 minutes to 20 minutes after we left Doha. Which, if I'd known at the time, I would have been terrified about. But my
Yeah.
friend texted me mid-flight to tell me that, did you know that war has just taken
I know, and
taken
your
place?
nerves at that point weren't good as it was.
No, because I was very upset about leaving them, because at that point, we were in the hands of Ankara just pulling their finger out and issuing a passport, which we just didn't know when it was going to come, which is disconcerting. I mean, we knew it was going to come, but yeah, it was just, yeah. So yeah, and then we arrived into Brisbane, and yeah, all hell had kicked loose in the Middle East. And of course, most people fly around the Middle East. In fact, when I left Maluna for the airport, my driver took me the back way, and it started to snow. It was all very eerie. He'd started to snow again very heavily on this back route. And I just remember passing the road sign, and the next stop was Tehran. I saw that on the road sign. I don't know
Oh,
whether you've been
really?
that road.
Oh no, I've never been on that road.
Yeah, the next stop is Tehran.
Oh, see, if I had seen Tehran on a sign, I probably would have yeah, that would have unnerved me.
So yeah, so it was all a bit weird. Yeah, and I did contact, when we got back, I did contact Canberra and say, look, or whoever was dealing with the passport side of things in Australia, and say, look, everything's a bit dodgy flying around that kind of area. Could you not go back to what I know you did during COVID times? Does my husband really have to present leaving my baby alone in Georgia?
Yeah, I just think this is ludicrous. I think it's ludicrous that at the moment they are still, even with everything going on in that region, and we know that Georgia's a safe country, and that's
Yeah,
all very well and good.
I didn't have worry about his safety there. That's right. Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%. At this point in time, I think anywhere on that side of the world should not be making people do unnecessary things where we all know that it can be done remotely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the response was like, oh no, it has to be done in person. It's surrogacy. And I'm like, oh God.
They were quite happy to do it for
So
during COVID.
yeah, actually, Mark got his appointment, and Maluna was great, looked after the baby fantastically. I had no concerns about that. Felt very secure with him doing that part of it. But, he went for his interview in Ankara, which really wasn't an interview. It was standing at a desk with a plastic screen in front of it to give over some documents, and that was about it. And, it lasted, and it was an appointment that lasted, he timed it as 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's put the timeline into perspective here. So you had departed to Tbilisi on the Friday night.
Yeah, yeah.
Mark's appointment with Ankara was on the Wednesday, but he left on the Tuesday. Is that right?
Yeah, I
Yep.
think so. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So he had his appointment. He stayed overnight on the Wednesday night in Ankara. And
That's right. Yeah. And
and
then went
and
to,
the other thing, let's mention this other thing, is that, the hotel that he was at was next door to the Iranian embassy.
yes. And Mark was wondering why there was so much police and
Yeah.
security guards around it.
Yeah. And
A
then
missile had been averted from NATO, and NATO had shot down a missile over Turkey as well, which I preferred not to tell him about.
Oh, goodness me. It's just terrific. And then of course, then he had to fly. He went and picked up the passport, which took, how long did it take to pick it up?
Oh, he was back in the hotel about 5 minutes later.
That's fine.
He wasn't even allowed into the embassy to pick it up.
Yeah, was it the gate or so? Isn't it at the
Yeah,
gate? Yeah.
yeah.
And then he had to catch the flight back to Tbilisi. So he was gone. He was gone almost 48 hours.
For a 7-minute appointment, yeah.
Yep. Yep. And so then he landed back on the Friday morning, very early, 2 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And then he left the next day, Saturday.
No, he left the Sunday, I think. Yeah, he left the Sunday.
Yeah. And so, and then of course, because your return flights had then been cancelled
Yep.
because of everything going on in the Middle East, he then
Yep.
had to buy new flights
Yeah.
and a new route.
Yeah.
And of course, I had also had that same issue because I had, obviously, but I had my colleagues here from Georgia and their flights got cancelled as well. So we rerouted them via China. And we also had a new dad, and his flight also got cancelled. And he went via China and Germany,
Yep.
get to Tbilisi. And on the way back, well, he hasn't got citizenship yet, but we'll look at how we're going to get him home when we're almost there. So tell me about the relief that you felt when they got back to Australia.
Yeah, it was amazing. Just to see my baby again. Yeah, just relief. But especially at this time, because I remember my friend had told me that the war had broken out, and Baxter and I started flying over Australia, and just the relief to be back in this country, which is so safe.
Yeah.
And which so many people take for granted, was, yeah, just amazing. I mean, they turned up, there was no bags, but I really didn't care about the fact that there was no baggage. That's immaterial, that came the next day or whatever. But just so good to see them and just know that we had managed it, and yeah, and that's our family now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much had he had grown in that week that you've seen him?
Yeah, he's now, what, they've been back nearly 2 weeks, so just under 2 weeks, and he's just under 7 kilos. So he's huge.
And he's such a good baby.
Yeah, he's not bad. Yeah, he's a good baby. Yeah, he doesn't cry, he just squeaks.
And I know that you've been trying to offload clothes because pretty much everything that you've brought, nothing fits him.
Even like he's onto the 3 to 6 months stuff already. I've had to even just bypass all the old 0 to 3 month stuff that we've got. I've given most of that away since we've been home as well, because yeah, I'm sure he'll be on the 6 months plus stuff soon, and I'm looking at getting him to size 3 nappies.
Amazing.
As well. So yeah, obviously the surrogate looked after him really well. I will point out she did not have diabetes, if anybody wondering. As far as I know, but she didn't have diabetes, so he wasn't big because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just. And how is it being a family of four, and how has the dynamic been with the big brother, with the little boy now?
Oh, it shows you how grown up he is, which is a little bit sad. He's no longer my baby as such. But he's great with the little brother. He's like, "Mummy, mummy," he's crying, and he's gone, I apologize. I give my child cold milk. It's easier. He goes to the fridge and takes milk out and gives it to him. And yeah, so he's interested and he comes and gives him a kiss. And yeah, so the dynamic is changing a little bit. Baxter was a little bit unsettled for a bit coming back. I think it's partly because I was so emotional
Yeah.
as well, which didn't help. But now he's been back into daycare and he's missed a bit of kindy, so he's kind of catching up there because I didn't realize how structured it was. Uh,
Okay.
I just thought they'd go and play. I don't know, but apparently they do class lessons and stuff. So he's missed a bit of that.
We learn so much as parents, pal. I tell you, every day I'm learning something new, and I feel so old at the moment. I really do. I mean, me and you, we're of a similar age, and you know, I just, yeah, I'm feeling old.
But I think they're doing space this week, and I'm like, you can tell me all about space because I can't remember any of it,
Yeah,
or planets and stuff like that. So yeah,
they're incredible. They're incredible. So, a couple of questions I want to ask you. So, what advice would you have for anyone embarking on this journey in Georgia?
just go and get it done. As simple as that. Don't break your heart over the minutiae. You know, don't listen to some Facebook groups where the people who are supposedly offering advice actually haven't, did their journey 5 years ago or whatever, and are still admins.
You're talking about me?
No, 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 not your Facebook. I'm talking about other Facebook groups. People. D- yeah, just look. It's
Know what you're saying.
achievable. It's just
Okay.
a different way of doing it. It's achievable. If you want a baby, you will get a baby. The one bit of advice I'm very pleased is that we did the guaranteed baby
Yeah.
package for sure. Sod's law. If you went for it, you probably wouldn't need it, but we actually did need it, and I think genuinely, my husband would have pulled the plug after a first couple of transfers weren't successful
Yeah.
because it was just causing too much heartache at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything's achievable. Just try and relax about it as much as you can. The problem with surrogacy is that you give over so much control to other people, and you've got to control the bits that you can control. If that's that you've got to go to work to pay for the journey, well, that's you doing your bit towards the pregnancy. That's all valid. So yeah, I don't
Very,
think I could do it again.
yeah, very wise words.
I don't think I could do it again, but partly because I feel that I think we're very blessed to have two via surrogacy, and not many people even manage to get to surrogacy, and they have to give up on their journey. The fact that we've done two journeys now, or two babies now, I don't want to tempt fate,
Yeah.
and also I don't want to have to drive a bus around either. So
Hey, looking back now across two journeys, is there anything that you would have done differently?
yes, if I'd had my time again, I probably would have gone to Georgia for my first
Okay.
with the embryos that we had. It's for us. It was a significantly emotionally easier experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people actually don't realize people are so focused on the financial aspect, they actually forget about the emotional aspect.
Mm-hmm. Financially, it's not that much different anyway. In the end, really,
Yeah.
it really isn't. But you can't, you can't. And we did Canada as well beforehand, which was actually at the time was a great process. It just didn't get pregnant, but that's all changed now. So I do say to people, maybe Canada's just too tricky now. There's just too many IPs.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I
So,
don't know much
yeah.
about the Canadian system, so Any last words of anything that you want to say? Actually, I do want to say though, I know you have been an amazing advocate and support for actually a lot of other medical professionals who are looking into going through surrogacy. So I just want to thank you for that from one parent to another, because as we both know, the more awareness that there
Mm,
um,
mm.
is a really good thing for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people have said to me, "Oh, I didn't realize surrogacy was possible," or "I didn't, I thought it was illegal, even in Australia." And I'm like, no, 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 no. There's all these assumptions. I think we are kind of richer people for having gone through it, who've experienced it. We've met a lot of couples along the way who have, nobody comes through this to this point without often considerable heartache and etc. But some of the people whose resilience through stuff that I wonder how I would have survived that is really quite staggering. And that there are people in this world who are genuinely good people as well, and just want to help. It's pretty amazing. And of course, I must admit, on a personal note, Liz, it was great having you at the end of WhatsApp going, "What the hell? What do I do now?" All that type of thing. I think that was for an Aussie IP, that was actually really invaluable. I think it's actually something that perhaps is lacking for other British IPs, etc. Just that kind of lived example, and somebody at the end of WhatsApp immediately to answer questions. I mean, you probably don't sleep much at night. We do value it.
You know, I don't sleep much. And especially because I've got lovely couples all around the world. I'm across all different time zones. So,
Yeah.
I don't sleep much. And between that and, twins who, Mommy, I've had a bad dream, you know,
Yeah.
but wouldn't have it any other way, huh?
Yeah.
And it's been my utmost pleasure to gain a friend first
Yeah,
and
for
foremost.
sure. For sure.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good laughs together, and I know many more to come in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
And see, I now see, I get emotional. I get emotional, and I'm just so happy for you guys. I'm just, two beautiful children, wonderful parents. You know, you
We
live.
can just get it's nice to actually draw a little bit of a line under it now and say, "Yep, been there, done that, got the t-shirt." Now we can kind of plan all our bucket list things for the
Yeah,
rest of our life, if
yeah,
that makes sense, without being
it
too
does.
morbid. When you talk about age, but actually now we're a bit older parents, we're a bit more settled, our business is a bit more settled.
Mm.
My husband's not rushing off into the city every day, coming back at 7 o'clock at night. We've
Yeah,
actually got more time for our babies than we probably did when we were in our 30s.
yeah.
And they do benefit from that for sure.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
agree.
nannies here. I don't need a nanny, because I'll work around it. So that's no offense to people who do need nannies, but you know, I'm sure we actually spend quite a bit more time than a typical younger couple who had their babies naturally.
Yeah.
So don't be scared just because of age. You can get hit by a bus tomorrow. Anybody can. So that's not a reason to put it off.
No, that's right. And, we are for everyone that is safe in their countries at the moment. And you know what? Even thinking of our friends that are in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha, because we all have friends that are there, and future parents, intended parents that are there. We just wish them, you know, safety and, you know, good health, and thinking of them on their journeys, because there are quite a few of them, even though you may not realize it.
Mm.
But you know what? It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks, Liz.
Um,
Thank you for our baby.
and oh, you're very welcome. I mean, I did so much work, didn't I? He's beautiful, two beautiful kids, so blessed. I'm so proud of you both. And yeah, just enjoy every minute, huh?
Will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I'll look forward to our next episode. Thank you so much.